Welcome everybody. Make it 7:30 here in Dubai, where I'm coming from. Time to start the webinar about the Doctorate of Business Administration program at the University of Northampton. My name is Professor Tim Campbell. I'm a professor of international management at the university, and I'm also very much involved with the DBA program. So I'm pleased to take this webinar for you. What I'm going to be doing, or how I'm going to structure this webinar, if you like, is I'm going to begin with about a 15-minute presentation about the program, just from my perspective, about the program that we run here in the United Arab Emirates, although it attracts students from all around the Middle East and Africa especially, and then just take some questions after that. So I'll begin with the presentation first. And I think when we talk of the University of Northampton, the best place to start is, where is Northampton and the university? And that's what this map shows. Northampton's a town in the United Kingdom, or a city in the United Kingdom. It's about an hour by train north of London, about 100 kilometres thereabouts, north of London. And it's an old historic market town that's been around for many, many years and appears throughout English history. And in Northampton is where you will find the university. Now, if I just go back to my starting slide there, the university used to be on the outside of the town in a rural area, but in 2018 it opened a brand new campus right in the middle of the town, and that's just one sort of view of it there. And it's really a fantastic, very modern green campus that they've got there. And you will find on campus there's a Senate building, and on one floor of that it's the research student space. So if you're ever over in the UK and want to go to the university, that's a space where doctoral students can use at any time. And the university itself, education dates back an awful long time in Northampton, back to about the 13th century. But the modern University of Northampton's origins, I would think, begin about the 1920s, when it was a technical college and went through sort of other different variations until it is what it is today, is the University of Northampton, with about 14,000 students and 1,500 staff. Of course, have a look at the website of the university and you'll find out plenty of information about it. And just one thing to note is it has been awarded the Teaching Excellence Framework Gold Award, which is a governmental run ranking system, if you like, where it ranks the teaching of the UK universities either as gold, silver or bronze. And Northampton has gold, so it does have a very good it is very good at teaching, and certainly I know from the workshops that we run for the DBA, there's a lot of satisfaction with those workshops. All right, that's enough by way of background of the university. As I say, you'll be able to have a look on the website, find out lots of information about the University of Northampton itself. What we're really here to talk about tonight is that Doctorate of Business Administration program. Starting point, and the question I get most often, I think, for people thinking about a DBA is actually, what is a doctorate? Well, it's actually gone through many variations. It's been around for hundreds of years, certainly in European universities. It's gone through different forms and it's sort of changed focuses over time. But now we generally say there are two different, well, firstly we say call it a terminal degree, which basically means it's the highest degree that you can attain. There are some very minor postdoctoral certificates and things, but generally speaking, it goes bachelor's, master's, then on to the doctorate, which is the highest degree. And there are two types of doctorates. One we call professional doctorates, and they're for people who are primarily engaged within a profession. So when you're ill, you go and see a medical doctor. That doctor usually has an MD, a doctorate of medicine. But we also have doctorates in engineering for engineers, education, you can do a doctorate in education if you're in that field, in pharmacy, all sorts of things, all sorts of different professions will have a doctorate that's attached for people who work primarily within those professions. Then the other type of doctorate is the research doctorate, and these are for people who are essentially conducting research and new knowledge. And the most common type of research doctorate is the PhD, which you may have heard of. So we have two different types of doctorates. Of course, the DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration, is a professional doctorate. It's for people who primarily are involved in business and management and professions. Okay, so they're different. They have different markets, they have different audiences, and the outcomes are different. The professional doctorates seek a more applied outcome, whereas a research doctorate can be purely theoretical, but they're also very similar. Firstly, they're academically equivalent. In the UK, they're both level 8 degrees, which means it's doctorate level degrees. They're at the same level, and they're actually both research-based degrees. When you do the DBA, you will do a big research project, just as you would if you were doing a PhD. But as I'll explain later, it's the outcomes that are different. The outcome of a DBA needs to be very practical, whereas if you're doing a PhD in business or management, it could be something purely a new theory that you come up with. So the similarities, they are both research-based degrees, and of course, if you have a doctorate, you can use the title doctor. Now, this is quite a wordy slide, but I'll read through it because I think it's quite useful, and it's just something I found on allbusinessschools.com, but I just think it makes this difference between PhDs and DBAs. I think it just accentuates the point, so I think it's worth me just reading through it. So starting at the top there for the PhDs. So PhD programs in business focus intensively on preparing candidates to conduct highly specialized scholarly research. They focus on the development of new theory in management, economics, and related fields, and most PhD and business administration graduates lead to careers as university researchers and professors, or as senior researchers in business and government. Okay. By contrast, the DBA, the Doctorate of Business Administration, programs focus on the application of theory rather than the development of new theory. So the DBA, by virtue of its focus on the application of theory, has more practical applications in managerial settings than the PhD. Okay, so I think that's quite a nice way that shows the difference between the two. So you find people who are primarily engaged in professions and industry, in any type of industry, but usually at senior levels. They're the sorts of people who are candidates for DBAs, and they'll study something that will have a practical impact on business and management. Whereas PhDs you more so find in universities or in research, or in, as it says here, in government research departments or that type of thing, conducting research. But that's not cut and dry. That's not always the way. It's just, you know, when I was working in the universities in the UK, we had plenty of people in my business and management faculty who were full-time university staff, but with DBAs. And I also know people who have PhDs who are in industry. So it's not a cut and dry rule, but you see where the different focus is. Right, that's enough about that. Let's get on to what sorts of things DBA students study. So DBA students' topics can be anything in business and management. So anything accounting and finance, strategy, human resource management, organizational behavior, social responsibility, sustainability, business ethics, anything at all that fits within the business and management realm. And to give you an idea of what our current students are doing, here's just a list of topics that I've basically picked at random. So we've got someone looking at an examination of performance management systems, another looking at leadership styles and employee performance, one looking at corporate governance in the public sector, assessing the value chain in a manufacturing business, reasons for investing in high-tech startups, resolving project conflicts, agile project management, and a student of mine who was looking at knowledge transfer in management training. So you can see it's a real variety, isn't it? It can be anything that falls within a business and management topic or field. And I'll talk in a bit more about, when I talk about research proposals as well, I'll talk a bit more about what makes a good research proposal, what you need to be thinking about at this stage. But anyway, those are the sorts of things that they'll study. How the program works is it's split into 4 years. So in the first 2 years, you have actually taught modules. And you taught 6 modules, which basically teach you everything you know about how to research. And then the second 2 years is when you actually do the research, when you do the thesis. We call that the professional research period. So the first 2 years are taught, you have face-to-face workshops. I say they used to be face-to-face workshops, and we used to run them here in the United Arab Emirates. And there are 6 of them, and that's over 2 years. So they're about 3 months apart. But of course, your consultant at Stafford I'm sure will have already sent you the timetable so you can exactly see how they go. But the modules always started with a 3 or 4 day workshop. The first module, Principles of Research, is a 4-day workshop. Then they're all 3-day workshops, and then your last workshop's 4 days. That starts your module, and then using the university's virtual learning environment over about the next 2 or 3 months, you'll complete the assessments for the module, everything you need to do, then you move on to your next module. So I said we used to do it face-to-face with the professors flying from the University of Northampton, but because of the situation we're in now, of course, the only thing that's changed is we do it virtually. So we use the university's virtual learning environment. So it's still 3 or 4 days, you'll still be sitting down, it'll be live, so you'll be just as we are now, except with using a more advanced system. You'll be interacting with your tutors. The tutor is still exactly the same person who would have come here in person. The only thing that's changed now is we're doing it virtually, of course, until the time comes again when we can actually go back to face-to-face. So that's how the program goes. 2 years taught, 2 years then on to the thesis, where you have your supervisors to help you out. Assessment. The assessment during the first 2 years when you're doing your modules, it's all sorts of different things. It could be an essay, a seminar presentation, a portfolio, a research report, etc. There's no exams because exams don't really suit doctoral level. We need to look more in depth in your knowledge than that. It's some form of an assignment, and it depends on the module. And of course, the module tutors themselves will tell you exactly what they want when you do the modules. There's lots and lots of support for the DBA program when you first apply for the program, and if you get through the first stage, you'll get to an interview. You'll meet the international DBA program leader, who is from the university itself, of course, and looks after this intake as well as the on-campus intake in the UK. Every module tutor has its own expert. When you get to the supervision, the thesis stage rather, you have a director of study and 2 research supervisors. There's administration in Northampton locally. I should also say there's the graduate school at the University of Northampton, which deals just for research students and has an incredible range of resources, and it runs workshops that you can attend at any time if you need more information about quantitative data analysis or how to write a literature review or whatever. They run all these workshops all the time. These are all just voluntary things you can join, as well as the actual program, of course. Then there's the virtual learning environment the university uses. They call it NILE, Northampton Integrated Learning Environment. Everything is on there, including the virtual classroom, and there's a very extensive library as well. So all the support you need when you sign up is there for you to complete the program. Let's get on to the entry requirements then. So the first is you need to have a master's degree in a business-related subject, ideally completed within the last 10 years. But if it's been longer than that, as long as you can show some evidence that you've been keeping up with your learning, such as doing courses at work or something like that, then that should be okay. But ideally within the last 10 years. A minimum of 5 years work experience, at least some of which should be at senior level. And you need to be employed in a leadership management role capable of supporting the achievement of the program learning outcomes. What that means is it's expected that all of our students will be currently in a role where they can actually, because when you do the facilitated modules, a number of the assignments will be asking you to reflect or think about your current organization and role. So you need to be in a role where you can do that. And then when you apply, fairly standard, it's a CV, a personal statement. In your personal statement, you'll talk about why do you want to do the DBA? Why do you want to do a DBA and not a PhD? How's it going to improve your career? These types of things, because a doctorate is a journey. You know, it's 4 years long. So you really need to be right from the start thinking about why you're doing it. And that's what the admissions team wants to see, that you really have thought about it. Because to get to the end, you know, there'll be ups and downs. So you need to keep that motivation going. And if you've got really strong reasons for doing it, that'll help a lot. So there's a CV, the personal statement, 2 references, certificates and transcripts, evidence of English language ability if you're asked for it. So that's all fairly standard. And then what you'll also do is a research proposal, which is about 1,000 words using a form that the consultant from Stafford will send to you. And I'll talk more about that just in a minute. And then that all gets sent to the university. If it looks good, you'll be invited for an interview. And the interview will be with the International DBA program leader and another person who will be an expert in your field. So if you're doing a proposal in human resource management, for example, there'll be somebody from human resource management. So let's just talk a bit more about those last 2, the interview and the proposal, because they are important. Now, I do need to make it clear that it is a competitive admissions process. About 50% of people who apply will actually get in. So you do need to spend some time on your proposal and thinking about the interview. It's not something you can just do in a few hours. So just a bit more information about the proposal. Why do they ask for it? Because they're looking at if the applicant is capable of studying at doctoral level. Look, they're looking for, does the proposal fit with the nature of a DBA? Is it applied? Is it a business and management topic? And does the university have an appropriate supervisor? The good news being they can supervise all major areas, but if you're thinking of doing something very specialized or technical, there may not be a suitable supervisor. So we just need to make sure of that at that stage. And just here's my bit more of information about the proposal. So when you're writing a proposal, you know, think about, can it make a practical contribution to business and management? Because that's what a DBA must do. Remember I said right at the start, it needs to be applied, make a real impact on business or management field. And then in the proposal, just they're looking at, can the applicant reference, and the university, as most UK universities do, use the Harvard system. Can you write a very brief literature review and cite some authors in the field? You have a basic understanding of research methods. And the good news is anyone who has a master's degree should really already have these skills. So this initial proposal is not expected to be rigorous, thorough, detailed, brilliant. It's just expected to show these things on the slide. Now, it's supposed to be an initial idea that you've really thought about, that you can demonstrate is in need of research, and you can demonstrate some basic master's level skills such as these on here. But as I say, you know, it does take some time to do these proposals. It's not something you do in a few hours. Do spend some time and really think about it. I thought I was going to say something more about the interview too, wasn't I? Yes, I remember what I was going to say. So do spend time on the proposal, but also if you're invited to the interview, do spend time preparing for the interview, because you will, you know, you will be asked. The interview will ask you about your personal statement, so your motivations for doing the DBA, etc. But it will focus mainly on the research proposal. So, you know, do prepare for things that the interview team might ask you. You know, they really are going to ask you, you know, is this topic necessary for research, and how are you going to do it? Do you have access to data and these types of things? I just know from experience, I don't think enough applicants really think beforehand about the interview, really put some thought into what the team might ask them, and really know their proposal in a lot of detail. So again, just my advice, just do prepare, spend some time preparing for the interview. Okay, that was what I wanted to say about that. Fees are very reasonable for the program, I believe. You would have said, you have a look at the Stafford Global website for the current fees, because they can change between intakes, so I want to make sure you get the current ones. And for this type of program, remember, it is not an online program. It's a fly-in faculty model. And even though the faculty can't fly in anymore, it's still face-to-face. It's still live. It's workshops. It's a part-time taught program. And at doctoral level, we try and keep the fees as reasonable as possible. Last few things from me. Why should you do a DBA at the University of Northampton? Because it's an investment in your future, both in your academic and professional fields. It's the highest qualification in business and management. You contribute to business and management practice. It would be expected your thesis would be published. There's international and local supervision and support. And as we know, there are local workshops from leading international faculty, which will be back as soon as they can. But as I've said a number of times now, those workshops are still there. They're just virtual for the time being. Final word from me, completion of the Northampton DBA will set you apart as an expert, able to lead and manage at the highest levels. You'll have made a unique contribution to your field and developed outstanding analytical, critical, creative and reflective skills so needed in today's business world. Okay, that's my presentation then about sort of an insider's view of the doctorate program. The next thing is, of course, the important bit, questions. And the easiest way to do that is if you just use your question box on the right there. And then I can bring them up and I can see them all and I can answer them. Let me just bring them up. Okay, let me just make my way through these. Okay, here's a question about the workshops. So as I mentioned, that the workshops are currently virtual. And so the question is, what is covered in the workshops and how important are they? The virtual workshops are incredibly important because these start every module off, and over the 3 or 4 days, you cover a lot of content. So if you think, for example, one of the modules is advanced quantitative techniques. You can imagine how important that workshop is there to have the tutor there in front of you, real time, going through how you do these different techniques using SPSS or whatever else. So you can imagine that these are real time, as I say, that they're just really important to your studies and you do need to attend them. That said, if you absolutely can't make it for some reason and you have a good reason why you can't, then they are recorded and you would be able to look at the recordings. But they are integral to the program and you do need to attend. And as I mentioned, there's not too many of them. There's only 6 of them over the first 2 years. So they're fairly well spread out. Another question, will my degree state online distance learning? No, it won't. Remember, I said it's not an online program. It is a part-time taught program. So simply, it won't mention anything about online learning. And the length of the program. So this is the question saying, can it be completed in less than 4 to 6 years? The short answer to that is no. And as soon as you're on the program, nobody really asks about it being any shorter because you need the time to complete. So it's designed to be completed in 4 years, but there is a 5th and a 6th year available if you need it. But my advice always is stick to the timetable, get those first 2 years done, assignments all done on time, move to the supervision, work with your supervisors, submit that thesis within 4 years, work to that timetable. As I say, if something happens, if you do need the extra time, it's there, but it's best to work to that 4 years. The main thing is passing. What else have we got here? There's a question, when will the workshops resume again in the UAE? Wow, unfortunately, nobody can answer that question at the moment. We just don't know when people are going to be able to travel again or when it's going to be allowed to have gatherings and hotels and rather in classrooms again and that type of thing. We just don't know at the moment. So we just virtual at the moment until we know more. Oh, the question is, will I be penalised in any way if I miss one? You won't be penalised, but questions would be raised if you started to miss large chunks of workshops. And as I say, you wouldn't be doing yourself any favours. At doctoral level, it's a big step up from masters. I don't hide that from anybody. So you need to be working hard and attending to make sure you pass. That's the key thing. What would happen if there's no supervisor for my topic? Would I get rejected? Well, you would do, but it very rarely happens, because it would only be if you were studying something very specialized, perhaps a very technical quality system or something, where there just wasn't somebody at the university with sufficient knowledge. As long as what you're thinking about doing fits broadly within one of the main business management subject areas, it won't be a problem. As I say, very rarely do we get anything like that. What else have we got here? Here's a question about supervisors. Will I be able to meet my supervisor here in the UAE, taking account of current restrictions? I didn't think I mentioned where your supervisors are from. So when you get to the thesis stage, there's 3 of them. There's a director of studies and a first supervisor. Both of them are from the University of Northampton campus. And then you'll have your third person, who we call the second supervisor, is somebody who will have local knowledge. So they will be from another university. They could be based here in the UAE, they could be based anywhere. But we call them a local supervisor because they will be somebody who knows about the context you're studying in. So if you're doing a study based here in the UAE, we'll make sure that second supervisor will have a good deal of knowledge of the UAE context. So it may mean they live here, or it may mean they used to live here and work here, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you will always meet, even when we go back to face-to-face, the supervision meetings are done virtually because, of course, it's the best way to do it, quite frankly. It's the easiest way to do it. You know, you can't expect you to travel to the UK and meet supervisors and then meet wherever other supervisors are. So the best way is always virtually, which works perfectly fine. And just on that as well, if you ever do want to visit the campus and you're in the UK, as I mentioned in my presentation, you're absolutely welcome. You'll have your student card. You can go and sit in that Senate doctoral research space in the Senate building and stay there for as long as you want. And you can stay, your supervisors will be there, your director of studies and first supervisor will be there, so you can chat to them, or you could do some workshops at the graduate school or anything. So remember, that's all open to you as well. Okie doke, let's have a look what else we got. Do I need to purchase any additional study materials such as textbooks, etc.? No, everything will be included that you need, and if there are textbooks that you need, they will be available on the online library as ebooks. So nope, that's all covered in the program fee that you pay. The only thing that will be extra is when we can go back to the face-to-face workshops. If you don't live here in the UAE, it will be travel and accommodation to the UAE. But as I say, I'm just not sure when that will be. Nobody's sure when that will be. Well, here's a question about the interviews. And I did mention how it is important to think about this. So saying how long does it take? I think most students tell me it takes somewhere between 30 minutes and an hour between how much they're talking about and what should I prepare. As I mentioned, know your personal statement. So, begin with the questions will begin by things like, why do you want to do a DBA? How will it improve your business practice? How will it improve your current role? Those sorts of general questions. And then it'll go through section by section of your proposal. So prepare it, but make sure you know your proposal well. That's the key thing. I've got a potential research topic. Can the impact of technology on a certain business environment be a valid research topic? Yes, you'd need to be more specific than that, but I'm seeing a lot of studies, a number of our students these days are looking at the impact on technology on business environments. In fact, I was talking to a student the other day, and I'm trying to remember his topic. He was looking at IT. Yes, he was looking at the oil and gas industry and how IT was being used to transform the oil and gas industry. So you certainly can look at technology, but make sure the focus is on business and management. Make sure the focus isn't on IT, because that would make it not a business and management topic. So technology is absolutely fine, but yeah, as I say, make sure the focus is on whatever business environment you're thinking about. And that's it. Well, just got me thinking about that now. It's technology's had a massive impact on business, hasn't it? I'm even thinking of what we do now. So much we do virtually now. And my field is organizational behavior, so I think a lot about how remote working is affecting motivation and job satisfaction and all different things like this, or even if there's a particular personality that works better working remotely than others do. So, those sort of questions we didn't think about so much pre-COVID. Anyway, last question. Is there a difference between the on-campus and the UAE intake? Absolutely no difference whatsoever. They're exactly the same. They are taught by the same professors. They are the same assignments, same policies and procedures. Nothing is different. So the only thing you'll find with the intake over here is, of course, all your students. The students mostly come from Middle East and Africa. And so they'll be researching topics mostly around this type of a region, whereas the on-campus students will be doing more so UK-based stuff. The actual degrees and content of the degrees themselves are exactly the same. All right, I think I've managed all those questions. All right, thanks everybody. As always, if anything else comes to you that you want to ask me, there's my details. Send me an email, or there's my phone number, and you call it. If anything comes to you after this webinar, you can always just get in touch anyway. And I hope to see you on the next intake, which begins at the end of May. Will be the 11th UAE DBA intake. Okay, thanks very much for listening, guys. Any questions, let me know. Bye for now.